There are fleeting moments in the raw arena of MotoGP that feel ripped straight from the fever dream sequences of a grand cinematic masterpiece. Yet what is quietly unfolding right now around Marquez surges far beyond any scripted tale, because this is no mere whisper of paddock gossip or routine contract haggling. We are witnessing an offer whose first leaked contours, already rippling through the hidden corridors of the paddock like silent lightning, hint at a staggering sum nearing €200 million. 200 million. And the true jolt does not lie solely in that astronomical figure. It is the very real prospect that this proposal could wrench Marquez away from Ducati's embrace in a matter of days, swift, decisive, almost surgical. Stay locked in with me until the very last beat, because buried inside this maneuver rests one pivotal thread that almost no one is voicing aloud, a hidden filament capable of twisting the entire ending of this saga into something unrecognizable. To grasp the scale of what is stirring, one must first absorb the deeper landscape. Marquez is not simply another rider carving lines on asphalt. He is the gravitational force that commands global attention, the spark that ignites viewership numbers, the singular name capable of tilting the delicate balance both on the track and beyond its painted curbs. When a presence of his magnitude begins to drift, even subtly, the entire ecosystem of MotoGP starts to tremble, as though an unseen seismic wave is traveling beneath the surface. Yet the undercurrents at play here are vastly different from any ordinary pursuit. This is not one squad chasing talent. It is an audacious undertaking of colossal scope. ATM, fortified by the vast financial oceans of Saudi Arabia, appears to be forging an entirely fresh empire, constructed from bedrock with Marquez as its unshakable axis, not merely the lead rider, but the living core around which every gear, every strategy, and every ambition would revolve. And this is precisely where the narrative turns fiercely serious. According to well-placed voices breathing the charged air of the paddock, this offer stretches well beyond a towering payday. It carries genuine authority, input into the motorcycle's evolution, sway over strategic choices, and a role that reaches deep into the team's future direction. Picture Marquez not as a high-paid cog, but as an architect granted the power to shape the very blueprint. In the tightly wound realm of MotoGP, that kind of leverage is pure explosive potential. Ducati does not function that way. Ducati embodies rigid order, clear hierarchy, and a near-surgical equilibrium among riders, engineers, and leadership. It is a finely tuned mechanism that has proven its worth through triumph after triumph, yet it was never engineered to revolve around one lone celestial body. And therein ignites the fundamental friction. Inside Ducati's walls, Marquez must blend into an already perfected machine. Outside, he is being invited to become the machine itself. And that stark contrast is laid bare. Doubt begins to bloom like dark ink in still water. And once doubt takes root in the mind of a warrior as relentless as Marquez, the landscape can shift with breathtaking speed. But hold steady, here emerges the most delicate revelation so far. Ducati is already acutely aware of the shadows gathering. A quiet internal alarm pulses through their corridors, unspoken in public yet fiercely alive behind closed doors. They recognize they cannot match the sheer monetary weight. More troubling still, they cannot rival the depth of influence and autonomy being dangled before him. This leaves Ducati teetering on a razor's edge. Should they fight to keep him at any cost, they risk fracturing their own carefully balanced internal architecture. Should they hesitate, they court the nightmare of losing the most magnetically influential figure the championship has known in years. It is a precipice. And right now I want you to pause and truly reflect. If you stood in Marquez's boots, which path would you choose? Because this transcends mere currency. It touches legacy, indelible imprint on history, the choice between harvesting victories inside a proven order or daring to erect an entirely new dominion from the ground up. And now arrives the twist that reshapes everything. This operation has moved far past early whispers. The dialogues are advanced, dangerously close to conclusion. That means the verdict could descend sooner than most dare predict, days, not seasons. Once a shift of this magnitude enters such a terminal phase, retreat becomes impossible. There is also a subtle current flowing almost unnoticed, yet it may prove decisive. The domino cascade. Should Marquez leap, he does not merely rewrite his own chapter, he jolts the entire grid. A seat at Ducati instantly transforms into the most coveted prize in the paddock. Rival squads scramble, riders reshuffle their futures, stalled talks suddenly surge forward with frantic energy. MotoGP would plunge into calculated turmoil. Precisely the kind of fracture certain organizations have been quietly awaiting to seize a rare opening. But the layers deepen further. Saudi Arabia is not stepping into MotoGP on a casual whim or sporting fancy. This is a meticulously calculated global maneuver. International positioning, planetary visibility, cultural resonance, and media dominance. To execute it, they require a figure who embodies spectacle, resilience, controversy, and raw theatrical power. That figure is Marc Marquez, not only for the silverware he has claimed, but for the living symbol he represents. Relentless overcoming, epic storytelling, magnetic friction, pure electrifying theater on two wheels. KTM supplies the technical backbone and racing DNA. Saudi Arabia floods the venture with unparalleled capital. Marquez would serve as the vital fusion point, turning the project not into another contender but into a force engineered to command. Meanwhile, inside Ducati, the invisible pressure swells like a gathering storm. Every passing day without clarity feeds a creeping unease, and in MotoGP unforgiving climate, unease acts as slow-acting venom, corroding performance, poisoning atmosphere, eroding trust, and eventually bleeding into lap times themselves. And this brings us to the question that distills the entire storm. Is Ducati truly equipped to release Marc Marquez? Because if this proposal holds the weight that all signs suggest, we stand before a head-on collision between raw financial might, boundless ambition, and the hunger for absolute control, clashing against stability, proven structure, and accumulated legacy. In such a collision, only one force can prevail. Ultimately, everything narrows to a single choice, Marc Marquez's own, and when that choice finally surfaces, it will not register as a simple team switch. It will register as a seismic rupture. A shift powerful enough to redraw the contours of MotoGP as we know it. The most startling truth is that this rupture may be far closer than anyone suspects. There is an even more profound undercurrent beginning to unsettle the private corners of the paddock, something rarely spoken in open air, yet discussed with grave intensity in hushed exchanges: the psychological gravity of the offer. When 200 million euros are placed before a rider, it is not merely wealth being offered. It is a profound declaration. You are the nucleus, you are irreplaceable, the entire constellation will orbit you. That message carries immense emotional mass. Inside Ducati, no matter how central he remains, Marquez still exists within a larger constellation of interests and balances. Outside, he is being invited to become the constellation itself. That reframes his entire sense of future in radical ways. Some insiders are beginning to suspect the offer is designed not only to lure Marquez, but also to manufacture internal pressure within Ducati, to create discomfort, to force uncomfortable positioning, to compel the factory to reveal its hand. This transforms the situation into something far more dangerous, a calculated strategic contest where every maneuver is precisely weighed. Marquez's inner circle is dissecting every clause with forensic care: the true scope of control, the project's long-term viability, the sporting risks. Because departing Ducati means stepping away from one of the sharpest, most battle-hardened organizations in the championship. It means embracing the possibility that the new venture may need seasons to reach full fury. It means walking a path laced with unknowns. The decision, therefore, is not between light and shadow. It is between two radically divergent roads, one offering immediate cutting-edge competitiveness, the other holding the promise of forging something truly monumental. Marquez stands at the exact crossroads in his career where such choices etch themselves permanently into legend. There's also a quiet factor many fans are overlooking: the silent erosion happening within Ducati. Though the surface appears steady, the pressure is unrelenting: relentless expectations, constant comparisons, magnified scrutiny. In such a merciless environment, even small fractures grow vast. When layered with the vision of an entirely new empire built around your singular vision, the mind begins to wander into realms previously unthinkable. KTM and Saudi Arabia are not merely waving enormous numbers, they are crafting a compelling myth, the chance to reclaim absolute centrality, to author a fresh epic chapter, to stand once more as the undisputed protagonist. For a competitor forged in Marquez's fire, that myth is extraordinarily difficult to dismiss. Yet Ducati is far from powerless. Within its ranks are minds that grasp exactly what hangs in the balance. While they cannot mirror the financial scale, they can deploy different weapons: unshakable trust, long-term stability, a already proven winning machine, and the comfort of continuity. In the end, silverware still outweighs silver, and Marquez understands this truth more deeply than most. That is why the decision is stretching longer than many anticipated. Every tiny detail matters: a passing conversation, a standout lap, a single glance inside the garage. All of it can tilt the scales. At this moment, the rope is pulled taut from both ends. KTM and Saudi Arabia driving forward with relentless force from the outside, Ducati fighting to maintain grip from within, and Marquez suspended in the middle, calculating, sensing, weighing every variable with the knowledge that one misstep could redefine the remainder of his journey. And this is where the intrigue reaches its sharpest peak. Whispers suggest Ducati may be preparing a countermove, not through matching currency, but through a reimagined internal project granting Marquez greater authority, greater voice, and greater centrality without shattering the team's foundational harmony. The burning question remains, will they act swiftly enough? Because once an offer of this magnitude materializes, time ceases to be a friend and becomes a merciless adversary. Each additional day without resolution draws Marquez closer to a verdict that could reshape everything. While you absorb these words or watch this piece, while the world debates, speculates, and spins theories, in some sealed chamber decisive moves are already being made, tense meetings, strategic calls, silent maneuvers that never reach the public eye yet will dictate the sport tomorrow. This is no longer the opening act, it is the gathering prelude to detonation. And there is one final perspective that illuminates why this operation has swelled to such extreme proportions. It reaches beyond Marquez, beyond Ducati, beyond even KTM. It concerns the long-term stewardship of MotoGP itself. When an entity with Saudi Arabia's resources enters with numbers of this scale, they are not simply acquiring a rider. They are securing strategic footholds, real influence, and a pivotal voice in the sport's evolution for years to come. To achieve that, they need a thunderous opening statement, a move loud enough to echo across continents, to force MotoGP into global conversation, to draw fresh audiences, fresh capital, and fresh momentum. And no catalyst burns brighter than Marc Marquez. That is why the offer feels almost outsized. They are not paying only for laps and trophies, but for the immense symbolic weight he carries. This leaves Ducati in an exquisitely awkward bind. They cannot counter a sweeping global strategy with a standard racing contract. They cannot match that scale of vision without fundamentally altering their own operational DNA. And therein lies the deepest dilemma of all. If they yield too much to keep him, they risk fracturing the very balance that delivered their dominance. If they yield too little, they risk losing the rider who currently anchors much of the championship's media spotlight. It is a high-stakes gamble with no safety net. Meanwhile, the media storm continues to intensify. The more the figure of 200 million circulates, the heavier it grows. The more it is dissected, the more tangible it becomes. That swelling wave touches fans, teams, and above all Marquez himself. There comes a threshold where the choice stops being purely sporting and becomes a public verdict, one the entire world will judge, analyze, and remember for years. No path is free of consequence. Stay with Ducati and some will claim he turned away the greatest financial windfall of his life. Depart and others will accuse him of abandoning a winning machine for gold alone. Neither choice escapes judgment. And that tension is exactly what makes this saga so magnetically addictive. There is no obvious ending. Each new day brings fresh fragments of information. Each small revelation shifts perception. Everyone senses that something monumental is hovering just beyond the horizon, ready to break. In the end, beyond cold calculations and intricate strategies, the final decision will be forged in the realm of raw feeling, by what Marquez senses he still needs to prove, by the hunger to stand once more as the absolute center of the MotoGP universe. If that inner fire still roars, this offer transforms from mere option into an almost irresistible summons. But if he feels he already occupies the right cockpit, with machinery capable of continued glory and without unnecessary gambles, then Ducati retains its edge. No one outside his own mind knows which sensation currently holds greater sway. That remains the central enigma, the exact fulcrum upon which everything turns. That is why, although the world hunts for certainties, we are left only with signals, subtle shifts in his words, micro-expressions in his posture, the way he carries himself inside the garage. Tiny clues the paddock pores over like fragments of an ancient riddle. Everyone draws their own map, yet only one man holds the true coordinates, Marc Marquez. And when that truth finally emerges into daylight, it will not land as another press release. It will arrive as a historic inflection point, one of those rare moments that carve a new chapter in the sport's chronicle and redirect its course for years ahead. The most electrifying realization is that this moment may be far nearer than any of us imagine. And therefore, what we are witnessing is not merely a negotiation. It is the quiet ignition of something vastly larger. When all the elements finally align, the capital, the pressure, the vision, the pivotal stage of his career, only one thing will remain: the decision. A decision that will not only chart Marc Marquez's personal horizon, but the very trajectory of MotoGP in the seasons to come. Ducati finds itself backed against the wall. KTM and Saudi Arabia are pressing forward with unprecedented intensity. And caught in the eye of this gathering storm stands a rider who understands, perhaps better than anyone, that he possesses the power to alter everything with a single, deliberate move. Now I leave it to you. What do you believe will unfold? Will Marc Marquez choose to remain within Ducati's ranks, harvesting further triumphs inside a battle-tested order, or will he embrace the 200 million and step forward as the living core of an entirely new era in MotoGP? One truth stands carved in stone: when this verdict finally breaks into the open, there will be no middle ground. It will either be the move that redefined everything, or the greatest opportunity ever allowed to slip away.